folks, you wouldn't believe it. I would. I had a great introduction to this podcast. I spoke for 10 minutes at length, and then I realised that my microphone was turned around the wrong way. So dang it, I'm going to have to go and do the whole thing again. Welcome to Folk Against the Machine. This is the podcast. I am your host, Joel Camille, and we are the folk. You are obviously engaging via a machine to actually be hearing my voice right now. And there is the irony of the construct. Here we are in the modern world, and it just marches on. And I propose to you this one idea for this podcast and this whole venture, which is that if we become a people who live without boundaries, if we actually believe in boundary collapse and break down the barriers which divide us, that we actually can achieve anything that we set our mind to, and we can make that good, bad, or in between. I push us on to good things, people. So welcome to this podcast. My name's Joel Camille. Some of you will know me. I feel like the early people who are going to get in on this whole concept are going to be people who already know me. For the listeners of my prior podcast, welcome. You might be wondering where my co-host is. I'm wondering where he is too. He left one night unhappy about an argument that we had, and I was a little mean that night, I suppose. And I haven't seen him since, so quite the disagreement there. So peace and love out to my brother from my previous iteration of this podcast, The Sesh. I wish him well and hope he comes and joins me again soon. But he and I have been friends for decades, and we are known to have these little disagreements. The last one lasted for 3 years, so we'll see. You can get a lot said in 3 years. Anyway, peace and love to you, the mole. I would pour this out for you, but you're not gone. You're just not here. It's delicious. Not sponsored. All right. I was sitting here in my lounge room thinking about what I want to do for a podcast, etc. And it just hit me. I got to stop making excuses. It's like just some of the dumb things that I'm thinking as reasons why I'm waiting to do the I'm waiting for my hair to grow back because I shaved it off for leukemia research. That's a stupid reason not to do a podcast, waiting for your hair to grow. It's growing. Waiting, until you got the camera set up right, or waiting until you got a decent studio set, or waiting until I've written the script for the first 15 episodes. All nonsense. Folks, I've been waiting 41 years to actually get out there and really share honestly and candidly my perspective with the world. And the time has come for me to indeed share it with you. Now, I sincerely waited decades of my life before really stepping out into a public platform and speaking freely. I did this year release my 5th album, Folk Against the Machine 5, Overflow. So it's not like I haven't spoken publicly. It's just that I hope with this podcast to actually speak with candor to issues that are relevant to us. And when I speak of us, I don't just mean in a localised Australian context or in a Western context. I mean us as humans, the people of planet Earth. I sincerely believe in boundary collapse. And the reason I believe in that is because my worldview is a Christian worldview, and via which, not pushing my ideology on anyone, just you need to understand where I'm coming from so we can collapse my boundaries and embrace your perspective as we collapse yours and come to some unified purpose. I believe in the centrality of Christ to the universe. And what that means is that once upon a time, there was a man walking around just like you or me, and I mean like a human, just like you and me. So a person walking around in a fleshy earth suit, and this person had the knowledge of creation, of the universe, floating around inside their head. And a message, a very important message to share with the people around. And rather than being some overly eloquent, amazing public speaker, he he elected to speak in simple stories with a use of figurative language, which was stark and incredible. And so one of the things that I'd like to unpack on this series is the fact that in Jesus' use of figurative language, we can use something that I call the Ravens analysis to show that in relation to his audience, he always made mention of things which were relevant and they were accessible to his audience. They were vivid, his language is bright, and engaging, and he didn't waste anybody's time. At least the things we wrote down in the gospel are noteworthy. I'm sure he said, "Pass the salt, Mary," but that didn't make it in there. It's more like, "You are the salt of the earth." That's the stuff we get in there. And then, it can't have your ears painted on, because when Jesus speaks, it's subtle as well. So there you have it, the Ravens. Everything that Jesus tells us in his use of figurative language is always relevant, accessible to his audience, vivid, engaging, noteworthy, and subtle. I would like to work my way through. So far, I think I've identified about 93 examples of his figurative language that we can take from the Gospels and from Acts, and we can apply this to other passages in Scripture, indeed to the world itself. So the Ravens analysis will be something that we'll do on this podcast. I am a musician, I'm a singer-songwriter, and if you have known me for any length of time, I've probably inflicted my music on you. You may have seen me perform in one of the public spaces that I've done so, or you may just know me from life and have discovered that I like to strum the guitar. I will do some guitar strumming here. This is one of my guitars, one of my favorites, but not, it's hard to pick. Was a favorite at one point, but she's got some competition. This is my guitar, Melissa, and she's traveled the road with me for many years. So I'll be playing a song for you in today's episode, and one off the new album. And so we'll do some music. I've got a YouTube short series I'm doing at the moment called Memes Mansplained, in which I over-explain my favourite internet memes to you. It's a dad joke. It's a long joke. I have another side hustle that I do when I was working as a landscaper. I used to do a thing called the Toilet Review. I think I'll share that with you here at times too. So a little humour, a little philosophy, a little history, a little language, a little social commentary, and I am recording this via an online software service called Riverside FM, and I'm doing that simply because if I keep it in this format, it's easy for me to invite guests on remotely, because via Riverside I can send out a link to you. If you want to be on this show, you can comment. You don't have to leave your home. The Riverside app will work from your mobile device, preferably from a desktop is better, and you can ring in and be a member of the show. I'd love to have a range of people on board. We are, after all, folk against the machine. So what will we call it? It's sort of, let's just call it a philosophy podcast, but I'm not going to wade too deep into philosophy to the point where if you're not a person who has a study of philosophy, that it'll be boring. Because honestly, I start throwing all the jargon at you. It's all well and good if I want to talk about things like, if I'm merging theology and philosophy together and talk about ontology and eschatology and epistemologies, and blah 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 blahology, what does that even mean if you don't use those dense and complicated terms, right? It's boring. It's a turn off for people who aren't used to that language. So but we will talk about the ideas underpinning those. So ontology being a theory of being, or what makes what is. What is it that makes what is around us? We're going to look at the world around us. We're going to question, ask about what it is, and we're going to provide some answers. Eschatology is, you'll have to excuse me also, I'm from Queensland, so my pronunciation of words, I like to murder some things just with the way I speak sometimes, and that's fine. That's just how it works in my part of the world. So anyway, eschatology or eschatology, however you want to say it, however you want to explain it, is talking about our concept of the end. What will the end look like? Some fascinating stuff on that, because as I'm speaking to you now in, what is it? It's the 29th of, as I'm recording this, April 2023, and my world has been turned upside down by the advent of freely available language models, AIs. ChatGPT has just crashed into my world right when I started a professional career as a teacher. Disclaimer, although I work currently, like at this minute, as a teacher, classroom teacher for the Department of Education Queensland, nothing that I say here in any way represents the Queensland government or my capacity. I do not speak in my capacity as a public servant for Queensland. I'm a private citizen speaking. I'm a musician and an artist and a philosopher and a thinker, a theologian, a father and a friend, and I speak to you in all of those capacities. Nothing that I say here represents my professional persona, and I need you to understand that the things that I say here are not fed through the same filter that I would use in my professional context when I speak, in a classroom as an employee of the government. But I will not be silenced just because I'm a government employee. And if it came to a choice between being able to speak frankly via this platform to the world, or continue in my role working as an employee in an education institution, I would choose this. I would choose this as my priority. I'm 41 years old, and I commenced as a classroom teacher working for Queensland Education this year. And that's, where are we? So I've done like 13 weeks of teaching or something like that. As an employee paid, I did, in my master's degree, I did multiple tours of duty out in the field. The reason why I'm making this a point of relevance is that I have very well developed concepts of the world which weren't formed with me being a government employee. And although I'm a non-conformist, I have taken the option to go and actually work for my government and do some good for my community and get in there and work with the young people of my community and help them to meet their potential. I'm an English teacher and a humanities teacher. I teach English, I teach history. If need be, I teach geography and also, whatever, you get called in to teach any subject. I could teach PE sometimes. It's beside the point. I do that with a certain professionalism, and here I speak freely and invite others to do the same. I'm always a free thinker, but it's just important to actually make that declaration, and I've given that more space than it needs to be. But, for 20 odd years before my time that I've now spent in the education sector, I worked in the food industry, mostly the meat industry, a range of jobs. For a lot of years I used to tell people I was a boner, and in the meatworks that makes perfect sense, but outside of the meat industry, saying that you're a boner, people they think you're saying you're some kind of dick, and it's not. It's a very difficult job, breaking down beef carcasses. I was not just a boner, I was a boner's tutor in the largest boning room in the Southern Hemisphere, which is the Dinmore meat processing plant, which is currently owned by JBS Swift, but it wasn't always, and not always when I worked for there either. It was previously owned by AMH, Australian Meat Holdings, which was a North American company. And I moved on, workplace trainer there, did a lot of stuff in hygiene, did a range of roles in industrial hygiene, and also worked at a range of sheds. Went out to a little shed in Camille, and learned many of the skills of a slaughterman. I admittedly did more in the boning room than I did on the slaughter floor, but I worked on the slaughter floor in a range of slaughtering roles at a little place in Camille, and then went back to Dinmore to round out my career there, working on the largest knocking box in the Southern Hemisphere. And man, it was fun times and good people, I got to say. But that's what I've spent a lot of my time doing. And in those long hours on the slaughter floor, I somewhat miss them, because you're doing sort of minimum 10-hour shifts, sometimes up to 14 hours. They're long runs, like even a short run's an hour and a half between breaks. It's a long time. It's a lot of think time just doing a repetitive task and murdering a lot of things. Humanely, we did it well. They're good kills, clean kills. Quick kill's a good kill. And you're welcome if you've ever had a cheeseburger. But that's dirty work, and we may even do a few episodes unpacking dirty work theory and explaining just why it's important to understand what goes on in the world of dirty work. But I make that point because I have fully analysed the world around me. Fully analysed, lost. As if you could fully analyse the world. What I mean is, as I've been a father, I've raised people right from infancy through to adulthood before I ever came to be a public servant. So when I speak as a free citizen of the state of Queensland. I lived here all my life. I have travelled some places in the world. I've been to Germany, I've been to France, a little bit, like went through the United Arab Emirates, I've been to Switzerland. Think I did Liechtenstein. It's so small. Is that even the place am I thinking of? I'm going to come back to that. It's a little small place on the map. Anyway, that's irrelevant. I'm merely pointing out that my real perspective is that of a Queenslander. And sometimes that is with great pride, and sometimes that is with great shame that I say that I'm a Queenslander, because I'm well aware of the contestability of my people's claim to the land upon which I live. So, on that note, let me pay my respects to the elders past and present of the Yuggera Nation, on whose land I have always lived. Like, my permanent address has always been on Yuggera land. I was born in Ipswich, and I currently live in the town of Lowood. And so far as I know, the Yuggera, if not the Yuggera, the Ugarapul people, apologies if I'm murdering the pronunciation, are the traditional owners of the land here. And yeah, I mean, when the British got here, they got a raw deal. But you know, so did the convicts who were sent here. They got a raw deal. So it was raw deals all around, really. But let's acknowledge that the people on whose land that I live are entitled to more agency in relation to the land than what they have been afforded by the system that is in place in Queensland. Case point, the Brisbane River, which flows right past the banks of the town, right past the town in which I live, is called the Brisbane River, named after some guy, Lord Brisbane, from blah 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 1800s colonial era, when in fact in the Yuggera language, its rightful name is Maiwa. So I live along the banks of Maiwa, and I don't really know how to spell that, but let's try Maywah, Maiwa. And that could be the better name for the place that I'm at. I wish to know more, but the hills and the towns and the localities, they're not given the ancient names in the place where I live. And there's a scripture in the Old Testament which says words to the effect of tear not down the ancient landmark which your fathers have set up before you. These boundary markers, piles of stones that, potentially in Palestine, the times when the Holy Scriptures were put together, were there for different shepherds or traders to mark, I'm on this side, you're on that side, or so that they could tell where boundaries were. And we're told in this particular scripture that we shouldn't tear those down. We should observe them. Now, while I come to you and speak about boundary collapse and talking about breaking down the boundaries that are between us, that's a Christian concept where Jesus is our peace, who has broken down every middle wall of partition between us. But that doesn't eradicate the concept of respect for our forefathers and for the cultures which have preceded us. So the way that Australian or we might say British, let's look in the corner of all the flags on the Australian states, you'll see the Union Jack and the Australian flag. Look on the back of Australian money, you'll see someone with a crown. So it's fair for me to say that British culture, the way it whitewashes over the top of other cultures, needs to at least be acknowledged. And I'm not being hateful. The past is a foreign country, as they say. They do things differently there. I should know who said that. It's a wonderful quote. So I'm not being judgmental when I talk about colonialism. I mean, my earliest Australian ancestors, as far as I can tell, came here in 1836 or 1837. They were from Scotland. They were the Meek family. The Meeks family? Meek or Meeks? It was James Meeks, I think. They settled in a place called Marrickville, which is in the Greater Sydney area, if you're unfamiliar with where Marrickville is, and that would have been on Eora country, E-O-R-A, the Eora people. And there's a story that's passed down from my grandmother, who's now in glory. She told me lots of the family history, and I suppose in some ways I'm the family historian now, because my grandma used to have all these fantastic photos, and I'm sure I've got cousins who've got those photos and stories, so I'm not saying I've got better history than others in the family, but I am a family historian who's passing on some of the stories that my grandma told me, the oral tradition of our family. And our settler tradition goes back, as I say, to 1830s Marrickville, and she says that many greats-grandma Meeks used to be hanging washing out on the line, and the Eora women would be standing at the tree line, quietly. They'd be watching. She'd hear something. She'd look around, and there'd be women there, and she'd try and get their attention, but they wouldn't come and engage. They were shy, is the story that we came down. When I told this story to a lecturer at university, when I was doing my Master of Teaching, we were doing an Indigenous education degree, I was talking about this particular story in my family, and she said to me, well, why do you think they were hesitant to talk? What? And I never really thought about it. I thought, Grandma said that the Aboriginal women were shy, and I just, okay, they were shy. They probably didn't want to get murdered. Probably. I mean, to be honest, these white people moved in and had a way of living, but I do not believe that the Meeks were getting around shooting people, but it certainly happened at the time, and the land that they were living on had been Eora country up to that point. Eora country, probably even saying it wrong, but that we do that in Queensland. But that's first contact, though. Essentially, what I'm saying is that my family moved here early enough that, yeah, it was not just where do all the Aboriginals go. Like, they were right there in the backyard, so to speak, when Great Granny Meeks was hanging up her washing. And they were market gardeners welcomed to the colony, the Meeks, because they knew how to grow veggies. And when the British first sent people here, they didn't bother to check that it wasn't Minecraft. They didn't send Steve. They didn't send someone who knew how to build a colony. They sent complete noobs who didn't know what they were doing. I mean, for goodness sake, the first cowboy in Australia was going for dinner, and he lost half the herd of cattle, including one of the bulls and a couple of the heifers. I mean, he had one job, and he lost the cows. So people were starving in between 1788 and 1836. There was a lot of hunger in Sydney, and Australia doesn't have its Thanksgiving tradition where the Indigenous people brought turkeys or whatever. Instead, they probably just came to the side and were like, "What the hell are these people doing?" They had no idea. Anyway. The Meeks actually left veggies out and shared, and there was a bit of exchange that went on between the women of the Meeks family and the women of the Eora tribe. If you want to know more about what happened between colonial Australia and its First Nations people, research that. I will talk on it. But there's some dark tales, people. Like, Australia needs to have a reckoning for its history, because some shit went down, and it wasn't pretty. And it should be spoken about, and it shouldn't be glossed over. When I talk about boundary collapse, part of it is just accepting the past. And I feel like, in some regards, the concept of corporate repentance is not a bad thing. And I don't want people to get all up, and some people get upset about, I wasn't there, so it wasn't me, so why should I be accountable for that? And I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad about the way things are, but shit happened, and we ought to accept that. And it's okay to call it out and say that shouldn't have happened. That's not the way human engagement. When European culture arrived in Australia, it should have been a wonderful thing, because all this different knowledge arrived to a land which had its own unique and different knowledges. But instead of there being this fair and equitable exchange of ideas between cultures, you just had a dominant culture just come and set up a way of life which just did not work. This concept of how Australia was set up, it was ridiculous. It was kind of bullshit. I mean, if you look at Australia, most of the earliest cities and settlements are all built on the coastline alongside rivers. And Australia is largely flat plains, and those rivers near the coast, they flood. So even today, when you get a good rain in Australia, you get major population centres just get inundated and they get flooded because we built European-style cities on a continent that we did not understand. And you all should not have built where we built shit. It's just like, it's goofy where we just built in the wrong place. It's that simple. We just built our things too close to the water and it rains and then our stuff goes and then we're like, oh my God, Western Queensland's underwater. And you're like, well, what'd you drongos go and build there for in the first place? Because, like, honestly, it ain't that hard. You look at those pictures of buildings in Asia where they're up on the bamboo stumps and they get typhoons come in, and I'm conflating cultural terms, but the point is you can build buildings so that they don't actually get affected by the water. Instead, we just have footage of, members of parliament helping out their constituents by trudging through water, helping people move their possessions out of yet another flood, and we're like, well, what do you do? Anyway, this episode's getting long. I'd better pull it up, because Folk Against the Machine, what is it? Well, how long should an episode be? I don't know. I don't want to get lost in this. We'll come to that later. What was I talking about? The meeks. Well, let me tie all of this together in. Jesus had this loaded saying where he said, the meek shall inherit the earth. And you kind of think, oh, that sounds nice, until you actually unpack, what is meek? Meekness is a particular type of anger. When you read a scripture which says Moses was the meekest of all men, and you're like, yeah, that's not the meekest of all. That sounds nice. Is he a nice guy to sit down and have a cuppa with? No, he lost his shit when he came down from the mountain and saw the people of God worshipping a bull, a golden bull, and he got so angry that he had in his hands what, according to the tradition, was the laws of God engraved by the finger of God in stone. He was so angry at the people, he lost his shit so much that he threw those tablets on the ground, broke them, and then had to go back up the mountain. And how do you reckon that conversation with God went? Those 10 commandments that you gave me? I lost them. I actually lost my shit and broke them. Broke your commandments. You broke all 10 of them. I broke the tablets. Yeah, there was 2, isn't it? Yeah, I broke both tablets. So, Moses, when you got angry and threw one on the ground and saw that it was broken, you then picked up the other one and you threw that one on the ground. You didn't stop and be like, oh, shit, I just broke 5 of the commandments. You just went all in, double down, broke all 10 of the commandments. Yes, that's exactly what Moses did. He came down with the laws, quite literally, these are the laws that you'll keep. And then he's like, what the fuck? And then breaks all 10 of the commandments all in one. Has to go back up the mountain. He's gone, I think, for another 40 days. And then God makes him carve these ones out himself, and then he comes down with it. This is the meekest of all men. What I'm saying is, Jesus said that blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And my point is that meekness, when we think of we say meek and mild. Meekness is like a little kitten or a frog. No, meek is fucking angry. Is what I'm trying to say to you. Meekness is anger, and the meek shall inherit the earth. Sometimes you could just get mad as hell, right? And that ain't such a bad thing, because God actually says that the blessed are the angry, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, meekness isn't just anger. It's a controlled anger. And that's where this whole sense of the little, nice, mild, that's where meek and mild come in. The meek, it's like saying hot and cold, right? Meek and mild. Because meekness is like boiling anger, but then you control it. And then you go back up that mountain. And you admit that you fucked up. And then you get your little chisel, and you, thou shalt not, I am the Lord thy God, and thou shalt have no other gods before me, and blah, blah, blah. All right, so you go up a mountain, and you just let it go what happened previously, and you write a new story. That's what a meek person does. And that is, a lead into this song that I'm going to play for you, which is off my 5th album, Folk Against the Machine 5. Probably got to stop naming these things that, but anyway. Overflow. This one's called Throw It to the Wind. And let's talk about what it's about. This is because I'm trying to get it on some Spotify playlists at the moment, and I keep getting different people's opinions on my music, which is it can be disheartening. Let's read some of the reviews of this song. Good vocals and instrumentation here. I liked the chorus. Unfortunately, I wasn't completely convinced by the production of the track. Thanks. That was a review from Francisco Sola. Supreme Playlist says, "Hi, Joel Camille. Thank you for sending your tune. Unfortunately, on a more personal note, the vocals on this track really detracted from the overall listening experience for me. Ouch! The instrumentation was solid, and I think the song has a lot of potential. Potential? Best of luck. Dude, the song's finished. It's done. I ain't doing... Okay, alright. Kevin Charles says, I think the guitar playing on this one is really great, and that you did a great job at filling out a lot of space with your guitar playing. However, I had a difficult time understanding your lyrics, and I wasn't entirely sure what the words were." Well, the lyrics are there on Spotify if you care to look, Kevin, but I'm feeling you. I'm sorry that it's dense. Unfortunately, I'm declining this one, but I hope to be a good fit for your next release. Okay. What I'm reading is my rejection slips from Spotify playlist. So here we go. Here's Culture Music says, "The artist's voice is beautiful. At the same time, the artist successfully performed the song. The second soloist," that's me, "also successfully participated in the song. However, as the song progressed, I did not get the pleasure I felt when the song started. I made him sad. The song gradually fell into repetition. That's the point. So it became commonplace. Commonplace! At the same time, the ending of the song was weak. Thank you for your sharing. Weak! How do you recover from this kind of feedback? All right, I'll give you one more review." Disheartening, people. "Hello there." This says T. He's got 6 playlists and 29,000 followers. Would have been handy to get on one of these playlists, right? "I admire the energy and appreciate the cozy, pleasant guitar that fit the whole very nicely." Well, it's recorded right here in this lounge room, the song, if you listen. I'm not on this chair on that one, but anyway, it's beside the point. This microphone, though. Good microphone. And he says, "I thought of Johnny Cash's Hurt at some moments." I love that song. That's great feedback. "I hurt myself today to see if I could feel," or something like that. All right. "I guess just a few similar notes in your voice's shade in the lower register. Thank you very much. I have to say, though, that at other moments the vocals felt much rougher and a bit pushed in the higher positions. Forgive me, I did not completely connect with that. I wish you success with your release nonetheless. Love, T." Love, T, I love that you gave me love, and you told me it reminded you of Johnny Cash. You didn't put me on your playlist, but there was highs and lows in that review. So what I should say is that my music style, Folk Against the Machine, I need to find my way back to the studio. Sorry, I should have screen shared that. Folk Against the Machine is I take kind of rock influences and folk influences, and I fuse them together. When I was growing up, my favorite band was Sepultura. Roots, bloody roots, right? Folk Against the Machine takes like hard rock elements and then puts them with soft stuff. So I love Cat Stevens. I also love Jimi Hendrix. I love Metallica. I love Rage Against the Machine, obviously. There's an obvious little pun going on there. And I enjoy, in my own time, I'll listen to guys like Ben Harper and, the band Alive and Tracy Chapman and heaps of stuff. But there's all Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam I ignored for years, but when I came to listen to it, I was like, wow, I really like this stuff. It's good stuff. Anyway, all that, different influences, they all get fused together. So yes, I do, basically, what my music is an acoustic philosophy where I try and just give you what I could give you if you're sitting down with me on a guitar, and none too different from that, except that what I've learned to do over time with my recordings is, maybe 2 or even 3 guitar tracks just to make it like a special experience for the listener. So it's a little bit different if you hear me play live, because you're actually hearing me play in one ear on one guitar, in another ear on another guitar, and then down the middle we're playing just like the main thing. I sing and I do harmonica. So often the playlist's curators, who used to listen to this really heavily produced, like poop up, like stuff, they listen to my stuff and they're like, oh, that's a bit rough. And I'm like, that's the point. It's like rock is rough. It's in your face, but it's peeled back. It's basically rock unplugged is what I'm doing. I'm going to let it go. All right. This song's called Throw It to the Wind, and it's about forgiving yourself, forgetting what people say about you. Because shit happens, people. And sometimes you've just got to realize, like, there's one thing that Jesus gave the world, and it was this commission. He forgave us, and he told us to forgive each other. And that starts with you forgiving yourself. And this song is about letting go. It's like, imagine everything that everyone ever had to say about you. Imagine those pages that you're holding on to. I'm telling you to climb a mountain and just release, throw those pages to the wind and let them just sail off. And you come back down that mountain and you write new pages, a new story. You forget you are not what they say you are. You are what you say you are and what God says you are. And what God says you are is so valuable that he would leave the glory of heaven to come and be in this place and suffer terribly to create a relationship with you. God says that you are immeasurably worthy, and that's who you are. And you need to tell yourself good things about yourself. So whatever shit people have to say about you, throw it to the wind, my friend. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, without further ado, I'll be looking down here because I'm still I wrote this song just a few weeks back, so it's still not like fully embedded. So anyway, let's have a go. There's a live version of Throw It to the Wind. I know you've been cold, holding pages, stories you've been told, chained to ages. Every whispered word, burdens to bear, time to let them go, release them to the air. Climbing mountainside, pages in hand, weighted words divide, and all that they demand, as now summer kneels. Wind whispers softly here, you are ready now, my friend. Here standing on the mountainside, let it go now, throw it to the wind, my friend. Whisper into the open skies, let them carry it for you. Throw it to the wind, throw it to the wind and breathe. It's a freedom in the air. Throw it to the wind, know that this was meant to be, and forgiveness now is free. Throw it to the wind, my friend. Watching pages go to the valley far below, drifting far away in the wind's carefree billows, into sky and sun, not one to reclaim. Breathe in freedom now as you let go of the pain. Here standing on the mountainside, let it go now, throw it to the wind, my friend. Whisper into the open skies, let them carry it for you. Throw it to the wind, throw it to the wind and breathe. It's freedom in the air. Throw it to the wind, know that this was meant to be, and forgiveness now is free. Throw it to the wind, my friend. Whispers on the wind, wipe the pages. Your slate blown clean, it was nothing in the end. Loosed in heaven now, let it loose on earth below. Let those whispers go, you are ready now. Here standing on the mountainside, let it go now, throw it to the wind, my friend. Whisper into the open skies, let them carry it for you. Throw it to the wind, throw it to the wind and breathe. It's a freedom in the air. Throw it to the wind, know that this was meant to be, and forgiveness now is free. Throw it to the wind, my friend. Descend to valley now, a new chapter to begin. Every new step, new vow. You will write new pages in, pages of the past, scattered and gone. Tell me your story now, it is ready to be drawn. Tell me your story now. 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 Might finish on the old A minor there. Fantastic. Thank you for listening. It has been my pleasure to share with you, and I'll see you again next week, I suppose, as I do another one of these. If you want to play that song, tune whole step down. I'm tuned to D there, so it's down that way, and it's we go A minor with a little bit of a it's like a seventh, and then you switch it, so bum 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 to C, G. Bearing in mind that I'm a whole step down, so it's A minor, C, G with a D in there, and then when you're going A minor, C, G, D. I know you've been cold, holding pages. Switch to the F then. Stories you've been, that's C, told, G. Back to A minor. So A minor, C, G, D, F, C, G, A minor. The chorus is C, G, A minor, F, C, G, A minor, F. And if you want to do the bridge is a D minor, E minor, F, G, D minor, E minor, F, G, and then it's just back to your old A minor with the 7. Now, why am I doing that? Well, the reviewers liked the guitar. Many of them thought my voice was shit, but they liked the guitar. So I'm sharing with you guys how to play it. If you like it so much, reviewers, now you know how to play the guitar bits. That's what's going on there. Anyway, excuse my French if you don't like the swearing. I do apologise. I'll do a little bit on Should Christians Swear. I swear to God, I will. And enjoy, folks. It has been a good time. I hope you've had a good time. Watch this space. If there's a comment feature on the platform that you're listening to, because like I said, it's going to be YouTube, it's going to be Spotify, Apple. If there's a comment feature, send me some messages. What shall we discuss? It could be literally anything, because I'm interested in all things. But remembering that Folk Against the Machine is about boundary collapse. It's about knocking over the things that separate us from being one and the same, because we do not need to be as different as people claim that we are. We're all in this together, people. Now, between now and when the robots take our jobs, let's have a good time. If you haven't been checking out what's going on in the AI space, get out and check out what ChatGPT can do, or the new Bing search, or I was checking out one called Perplexity today. That was very interesting because it actually cites its sources. These large language models can do very, very interesting things, and a lot of people are getting scared about what they can do, but let me say, don't be scared. Jump on board. Learn it. So, historically Christians have been very good at taking up new technology. It was Christians who adapted and took up the codex, the book, the flippy, pagey book, the concept of writing on both sides of a page. Christians loved that technology when it first came out. And since then, sometimes some Christian thinkers reject new ideas. I don't think you need to reject this one. This is an interesting development. We can talk about the ethics of what happens when machines appear to be able to outperform us in various tasks. They'll get there, no doubt, and I'm happy to talk about that. But don't be afraid of these times. Jump in on these times. We live in what has to have been the most exciting time in history. And God damn it, there's some good times to be alive. Just seeing the stuff that has happened in this last 100 years or so. The information revolution that we're living in is just whoa, amazing. Just what a time to be alive. And yeah, it may all go south when the singularity occurs, and I'm working on a song on that. No, I'm not going to spoil it. We can do that one in the next episode, but I'm working on a song on that. But people, peace and love. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself. Stories people been telling you about you, yeah, they might even be true stories, people, but you throw it to the wind. Forgive yourself. Love one another. Be good. Don't be judgmental. I think it was Marshall Rosenberg who said, every judgment is the tragic expression of a beautiful need. Or I'll put it to you the way Jesus said it. Judge not, or you'll be judged. Because in the same way you judge others, they're going to judge you. So stop judging people. Because it's going to come back, folks. It's like your words are a boomerang. Now come back at you. And I'm throwing out peace and I'm throwing out love. And I'm saying that you are worthy and you are good enough. And forget good and forget bad. You are enough. You are enough. You are amazing. God loves you. And I love you. And you love you. You. That's a command there. You. Love you. Get in and love yourself. Right? Look after you. No one else is going to look after you like you're going to look after you except for God, and I pray His goodness on you. I declare His goodness over you, but you have to, I don't know if you're listening or if you're not listening and you get in the camera, my hand's getting right up in the camera's face there, because I'm like, you are so beautiful. And you're, oh, Joel, you can't even see me, how do you know? Because I know that God so loved the world that He gave His only iteration of Himself, His begotten Son, that whoever would believe in Him, in that one who was sent, would not perish. That death can't even touch you. You're unkillable. You're unstoppable. You will have everlasting life. And that's what I pray on you. Like forever goodness. The goodness that lasts forever. And that's what you're worth. You are amazing. I love you and God loves you. And you love you too. Do you understand? You get out there and love yourself like you know you should. And I'll see you next time. Comment, folks. I get bored. I'll do some comments in the little tappy. I want to do tappy sounds. Maybe I'll edit it in later. I will do some commenting as well to kick it off. I might ask some questions. Let's get a bit of chatter going. All right. Peace and love to you all. I'll see you next time. This has been, hold on, it's not much of a, oh, swigs the beer. I'll play us out. Those last notes didn't fit, but don't worry. I'm thinking of another song. Love, folks.